Welcome to Life's a Coach. Our mission is to empower individuals like you to take charge of your life, discover your purpose, and elevate your performance to new heights. Each week, we'll be diving into engaging discussions, introducing you to valuable tools from the coaching world, and giving you different perspectives on individual development. Whether you're seeking clarity, motivation, or a fresh perspective, we've got you covered. Again, welcome to Life's a Coach, where the power to transform your life begins now.
Welcome back to Life's a Coach, guys. My name's Eric Clermont, and I'm glowing apparently because we've got a juicy topic for you today. Um, Today we've got life coaches Avril and life coaches Sofia in the house, and Sophia's got something that she's been working through. So I wanted to pass the mic to her to kind of open up about what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Eric. So, funny thing, I came into the podcast session for recording today and I said directly to Avril, Avril, what's wrong with man? So, this is something that we as coaches try to not do and not do it very specifically. Although, in this situation, I'm going to talk a little bit more around a situation that is happening with me and men. So if you remember in a previous podcast, me and Almer asked Avril and Eric, why do men ghost? And we went around a little bit on Avril's and Eric's perspective on this. But really, why can't men be honest about things that they are going through if this means that it will be healthier for the relationship to go in different pathways for a person for people when are dating or even in a relationship? So, Avril, Eric, being you men, I would like to understand your perspective of this. If a woman comes to you and says, so I'm not seeing this as future, or I don't see us being together. I enjoyed my time, but I don't think that we have the same energy. Why do normally, at least in my experience, men get offended?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So thanks for bringing that to us, Sophia, first of all. Thanks for your trust. And know that this is a big thing because Sophia's not really like that, where she's like, telling us what's going on and Sophia wants to know the answer to this question, and I think all of our listeners do too, which is even better. But I'll start with just the kind of, I guess, the overarching you know, um the elephant in the room, so to speak, right? I think when we think about these things, we need to think about, okay, um, what work are men doing and how capable are they to
Hmm.
be within relationships, right?
Hmm.
Um, so the first thing I think is tapping into obviously masculinity, right? And I know that's a topic that myself and Avril have really dove into, and Avril will definitely be able to give a perspective on. But masculinity being the ability to be able to lead and direct, right? And to be able to be in control of your emotions and to kind of, um, I think, understand what your values and goals are in life. So I think first and foremost, a man must be, must have probably done the work initially by themselves in order to now be in a place where they can commit to a long lasting relationship, but also to communicate their needs effectively to a woman, right? So, again, I know that's probably not the answer that you need to hear, but
No, no,
um,
makes
I
sense.
don't know. Again, I don't know what Avril thinks, but what's your thoughts, Avril? Because I've definitely been that guy. I'll be honest. I've been that guy where I cannot, and I won't, right? Even if it doesn't feel right, I don't feel enough in my body to be able to trust that my body will tell me the right answer. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
again, but it may be something else. It may be just that the guy can't commit, or they're not in the right place to. So
Um, so if I get the question correctly, what I'm getting is that Sophia is saying you've been active dating and you've had one or two guys where you've come to a place of realizing that we're not aligned, or we're not, this is not going to work for me, and you've communicated clear to them that it's not, and they have become offended with that, or they're not able to take that.
Yes,
I can,
and sorry, April, just adding
no,
up to
no,
that. And then
yeah.
that's the other side also, that when communicating, something is wrong. Like Eric and Avril, don't forget what you're saying. You just mentioned something that I think it's very important for all of us, is the connection with your body and how do you feel. And although sometimes intuition may trick us, and we've talked about this in the past, like triggers that we have, things from the past in our body and everything, I really think that our body tells us things when we are safe, when we are not safe, and everything. And when, in my case, I feel something is wrong here, I cannot understand it, and I address it, what has been happening is the person says, oh yeah, I've been thinking and maybe this doesn't work. And then I was like, come on. And it's me that needed to come to you and say, I feel something is odd, for you to get the courage, I would say, to address it. But this goes to men and women. I think this is not exclusive to men. But Avril, yeah. Adding to what you were saying, it's the thing when, or they get offended, or they say, oh yes, really, this is what's happening. And maybe it's not a
So
honest
they have
answer.
also been feeling the same, but not being forefront or coming forth with forthcoming with communicating where they're at, how they feel. So to me, I'm hearing two things, and excuse me, I feel like one part of it has to do with emotional intelligence. I feel like, and also the two things that crossed my mind, and I'll break them down in a minute, is like emotional intelligence, and also the way what was modeled for them relationship wise growing up as kids. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. But
For those of you who
I
can't see,
think
we can see celebrations going on because Avril's putting his thumb up and we're
I
saying the
put
thumb
two
up.
thumbs up.
Just in case it doesn't come up on the
And
actual button.
fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say emotional intelligence because if you come to me and you communicating, if we're in a relationship or trying to start a relationship or dating, right? Initially, there's interest between both parts, right? And if you come to me and tell me that, hey, I don't feel like we're aligned or something's not going on well here, two things comes up and I'll speak in general, but I'll speak also for me. Like this is what I would likely happen to me, but I think it's also general that one, uh, I might feel rejected. The feelings and thoughts of rejection may come through too, right? And if they come through, how do I handle them, right? If someone feels rejected, sometimes if they can communicate, they can communicate through that. If not, they'll push you away, or they'll act from a place of being annoyed, offended, and they'll take it personal, and they may react in a certain way, right? So that could be, I'm not saying that's what it was, but that could be some of the stuff you are experiencing. Or if again you come and say, even if you're saying something's not right, I'm not quite getting what's going on, I don't feel we're aligned, again, typically, and I can't just say this goes for men, it goes for even men and women, is that we may take it personal, right? You're saying something, I don't think we're aligned. I may take it personal, like you're saying there's something wrong with me, instead of like the facts on the table that we are not aligned, right? You might say, whatever it is, I'm in lane A, you're in lane B, and things are not feeling aligned, right? Without any specifics there. But it's easy for some people, both male and female, to take it personal, like, oh, she's saying there's something wrong with me, right? And when they take it from that perspective, where I talk about emotional intelligence comes through is how then they respond or react from that space is the reaction that you get that might end up being feeling like you're being pushed off, or they either be mad, annoyed, or whatever reaction that comes to that. So that's why I say, going back to some of the topics we've spoken about on the podcast before, it's all about communication. Do I know how to communicate what I'm feeling right now? Especially, I love this person, or I'm interested in this person, or I like this person, and it feels like I'm going to lose this person. How am I going to communicate that? You know, in the moment with all the feelings that are coming up. Do I even know? Again, going to Eric's point, have I done the work to know the emotions that are coming up for me, or even to see the layers of what's happening? I'm annoyed. I'm also frustrated. I feel rejected. Dot 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 dot. Right. And before all these feelings and thoughts come to the surface in the mind, before even the brain gets a chance to engage to communicate with you, it's like, okay, so sometimes when you're angry, or they say never make decisions when you're uh, either very happy or very sad, right? So because the emotions, they cloud that judgment, that thinking part of your brain is blurred. So that comes after the point that even if they want to communicate or even go, okay, Sophia, so what are you saying? Let's find out what's going on. That all the other stuff, aka triggers, have come up, and they're no longer in the present moment with you, with what's happening in front of them, but all these other triggers are coming up to the surface. So I'd say that's one probability. That's why I say emotional intelligence. And when I spoke about also how relationships were modeled as well, is that as a kids, as we watch either grown-ups or things we see on media, on TV, or things that our parents did, or uncles and aunties, or this cousin or brother who was older than us, who was in a relationship before us, we watch and sponge all that of how relationships are modeled to us, right? So I'm like, if someone, again, going back to Eric's point, if someone hasn't done the work within themselves, right, the way they may respond or react to someone saying that is all just in their autopilot of how it was modeled to them. Yeah. At least those are the two things that come to mind with what you've put on the table.
Yeah, and thank
Eric,
you.
You're muted.
And Eric, you're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, talking to myself there in my room. To add to what Abel was talking about, communication patterns, I think, initially, obviously, they come from our first relationships, obviously, which are with our parents. So that's obviously how we create and manifest our styles of attachment, right? And, if we become more anxious or avoidant, and disorganized, initially, obviously, the needs that are not being met by our parents, obviously, but then I also feel that our first relationships, right, not only by caregivers, but then friends and first girlfriends, first boyfriends, those types of relationships really have a big effect on how we communicate within relationships, right? Because we just see that is the norm, right? We see this person of the other sex or same sex, right? This romantic pursuit as somebody who, is going to sometimes fill our cup. And, we react in predictable ways, right? So if someone, starts to get real, right, and become very affectionate, for example, perhaps we're just used to from past relationships of I'm supposed to pull away now. Now we're not doing that consciously, but it's a subconscious reaction almost based off of kind of, again, our past relationships and things like that. So I think it's that aspect of. One other thing that I learned pretty recently is, and I don't know what we do with this, but men, women, I think in general, there was a post on social media, and I'll try and find a link to it on a coach who really works with men a lot, but it was of a girl, a female, and she was expressing how, when she's in a relationship, if things are too normal, or he's being too nice, or there's no conflict in the relationship, he like she doesn't want that, right? Like for her, that's weird, and she wants to like run away from the relationship. She wants to have nothing to do with the relationship, right? When in actual fact, what she's saying there is, within a relationship, what one of her needs is she needs dysfunction in a relationship. Do you know what I mean? So some people are used to having dysfunction within a relationship. So when they meet someone that's like, now that I feel that we're on the path, right? Because all you have to do is be on the path of enlightenment, the path of doing the work, of trying to be grounded, trying to be intentional. Now you're much more in tune with the life you want to live, the person you want to be. Some people consider that as like very quote unquote vanilla, right? Where like, oh, like often people associate love with what Avril said, which are the ups and the downs of these emotions of, oh my God, like we need to constantly be making up and breaking up and having fights. And, I'm supposed to feel, you know what I mean? Like obviously not subconsciously we're thinking this, but like that's what a lot of the movies, Disney movies, romance novels and all of those that get us hooked is because of those feelings, right? Those very strong 1 to 10 feeling, right? Not like a 6 or a 7. So I feel that a lot of people are expecting that. So when they see, let's say, a grounded woman like you, Sophia, who is very, you know what I mean, in touch with her emotions, she kind of knows what she wants. I have a sense that, you're not going to take much BS, from somebody else with regards to the way they treat you, right? First of all, some men may be intimidated by that, but secondly, they may not be used to having that level of groundedness, and they might not know how to react to that male leadership, because oftentimes, again, a lot of women in a relationship have been the one that are leading, have been the one that directing. They're calling the shots. They're saying, they're deciding where the relationship goes, right? So as I feel men reclaim their masculinity, a lot of men, where I think we're in this age where that's happening a little bit more, then now perhaps, they don't know how to react to a grounded, a a complete, right, a full woman. Does that make sense?
Total sense. And thank you, Eric, for these 2 points. First, the caregivers, and I think everyone has his history or her history on what happened in the childhood. But also, you mentioned something, it was the first relationships or even the last relationship a person was with. I can think that it will impact a lot on the place where the person is coming to when dating. Like triggers, and we've talked about this in the past. Someone new is doing something very similar that your previous partner did, and this will trigger an emotion, a reaction from you that maybe it was not to you specifically, but to the past person. But it is what they have, and we all have, how do you say it? We all bring baggage, right, to relationships. And as Avril is saying, communication, emotional intelligence is very important when starting to meet someone new. But I'm curious, and here I'm going to talk from the place, I'm a life coach, and I read a lot about these, so I can understand some of the concepts that are going into other people's minds when these kinds of things happen, like the rejection, Avril, as you mentioned. I totally see when I distance myself from the thing, okay, this is what you're feeling and you're projecting this on this situation, things like that. But coming from a place that I really think, and both of you have mentioned this before, women may be very much more in touch with their emotions, or at least comfortable to share them and share them with friends and with community as of men. That we've talked about this in the past, right? May struggle, may have social, how do you say it? Not social boundaries, this is not
Social
the correct
anxiety.
term. No, social pressure to act in a way like be a man. Men
Okay.
don't cry. Have been growing up with this kind of concept. So I'm coming to you both saying, considering these kinds of challenges and what you've thought that maybe goes on, in men's mind in these situations, how could you as coaches be of service today in this podcast to these men? Like going through dating. He needs to think, Avril.
I gotcha. I mean, to me, going back to the two main points that I brought up, which again from from the example that you gave us for the situations that you've been experiencing, Sophia, the two things that really came up for me is like emotional intelligence, right? And also what was modeled for that person, the conditioning for that person, right? Um, so if I was to coach someone in that area, typically, I would say someone would come to me in that situation saying, not knowing um, how to how to react or respond to, you know, that person they like telling them that news that something's not working right, you know. And one thing that I like about the scenario you gave us, Sophia, is that some people actually look at it this way, that okay, if you see it touches into a lot of the other topics we've done on the podcast, but some people can even look at what you experience and go, oh, that's a red flag, you know. It's a good thing that you guys went separate ways and gone in, because that was already showing signs of things that could happen in a relationship, right? And I can totally see that in a way that, if again, I'll use myself an example, like the role playing here. If you come to me, Sophia, and tell me, hey, Avril, I don't think we are aligned, you know, something's not right here. If my response is like, okay, then I'm out, or if I react in anything way that I'm aggressive or putting it on you, or it's a reaction rather than a response, then it shows that somewhere in there I don't know how to handle the feelings that are coming up for me, whatever they may be, whether I feel rejected or whether I feel I take it personal what you're saying or whatever. It just shows there's something here that I haven't yet mastered or know how to do in dealing with what's arising for me, right? On an emotional place. And it's even clouding my judgment and the way I think mentally about how I'm going to respond, or cognitively how I'm going to respond to what you're saying to me, right? So that's one. So I'd say it also goes back to, again, what Eric keeps talking about, doing inner work, right? So, and again, I think that's what you're taking the conversations, like, okay, how the inner work, typically you can either do this kind of stuff with a coach or with a therapist, depending on, you know, how deep and which direction you're going with it. But so coming back to your question, like if as a coach, how would I help such a person? Again, it's to ask what we're trained to do, to ask the powerful questions along the line of, like, you know, to get them to a place of finding out why it is that they're reacting that way and they're acting that way. And typically you find that for people who haven't really done the work much before, that guy you just had an experience with, Sophia, would come to me and the coach and think that you're the problem. Do you know that? She did this, she did this, she did this, she did this. Because if you haven't done the work, it's always somebody else's fault. It's never your fault. you know? You know. So for me to be like walking them through the process, like, okay, this is what you've been experiencing, or this is what has been happening. Okay, how have you been processing it? You know. So it'd be like asking them the powerful questions of like how to process them. And again, because it's, to me, the way I see it is also emotional intelligence situations. I'll take them down that path of asking them the questions of how they deal with their emotions and which emotions coming up and all that kind of stuff, and even how they perceive the situation, right? Sophia said to me, ... you know, but what she said and how I perceived it and how I took it on, right, is my responsibility. Do you get what I'm saying? So I have to walk that person through that path too. And the other side, which was talking about conditioning, or what was modeled to them, again, is like, again, part of the and I'm sure it may start off there with the emotional intelligence, but the questions at some point will come back around as well. Like, it will come up in conversation what was modeled for them. you know, and their experiences with that. Because a lot, again, when I talk about conditioning and walking in the autopilot, is that it's the accumulation of all the experiences we've had, whether going to Eric's point of my first girlfriend, how that went, or what was molded by my guardians or my parents or whoever I idolized to be a model of a relationship I want to be, whatever they showed me, whether they intentionally taught me or I sponged it and just took it on and that's the norm or that's what I'm supposed to do. Models all goes into the automatic, right? Into the conditioning. So at some point, my questions will also go into that too. Like, what do you see a relationship like? You know, in these situations, what do you think men are supposed to do, women are supposed to, or whatever sex, or gender, whatever role that applies to in that relationship. That's how I would tackle it from my end, because again, from the example you gave us, the two things that popped up for me would be those first two. So I'll start there, then obviously go deep and find out where it takes me or takes us. Eric?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that. I love the answer, Avril. And yeah, very much in the same vein. I think if, coaching a man, again, let's separate the situation and the circumstance with the deeper issue or the deeper skill that we're trying to improve, right? And I think there's a few skills that we're trying to improve here, right? Which obviously probably needs a little bit of deeper work. So the first one is obviously that to start with, I think vision setting, what I would call vision setting, what I do in my performance work, and we need to have an idea in our head of who our best self is and who we want to be as a person and in a relationship. Because without a thought and understanding of who we are as a person, right, what our values are, what we stand for, who we want to be, the life that we want to live, then we can't really make big decisions in our life. Okay, where do I want to live? What do I want to do as a job? What type of relationship do I want to have? Right? Do I want to have kids? Do I not want to have kids? Right? All of these aspects really come back to being in tune with who we want to be, like from a vision standpoint, right? So we need to have that idea, and then every day we need to take steps to be working on that, right? So if we say that we want to be healthy mentally and physically, what are you doing mentally and physically every day to become better or to improve or to be healthier, right? So that's probably the first step for me. How I'd work with men is kind of tapping into what that is, what that vision is, and then what are the daily steps? I call it home daily improvement, right? What are the daily steps that you need to take in order to do that? And if you can have an accountability partner with that, that's fantastic. Next, to Avril's point, we need to have emotional regulation. So it's the link between your mind and your body, right? So when you're feeling a certain way, why are you triggered, right? Using that ability to be able to connect with why you're feeling how you're feeling, to be able to sit with it, to be able to breathe. I think we disassociate a lot in today's society, right? When we feel uncomfortable, we'll do one of two things. We'll either run away or we'll do something to distract us, right? And it's very easy to do that. So being comfortable with being uncomfortable is probably a skill that a man needs to, really hone in on. Okay. So I would say those two, and then the last one, is connected to the first two, is communicating your truth, right? So that's linked to one and two. One is now that I'm connected to my vision, now I need to be able to speak my truth and be able to communicate with people what I need to do, what I want to do, and how I want to live my life. But then also I need to do that now with another person. It's one thing, learning yourself, and kind of feels really good when you kind of find that picture. But now perhaps sometimes if that doesn't align with somebody else's worldview, and you're trying to explain to them, okay, respectfully, I want to live my life this way, and you're a wonderful person, but your fundamental beliefs and values and the way you act is not in line with obviously how I want to live my life, right? I would say those three are ones that I would kind of really just hone in on, to kind of decide. I'm interested to hear from a woman's point of view. How would you coach a man within that same situation?
Hmm.
Oh, if I may, if I may
Hmm.
just tweak that a bit, because what you described, yes, fair enough, it happened to you from men, but as I'm also listening to it, it's like it can also be it's
Hmm.
gender, it happens with both genders here. All right.
Yeah,
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a man, but it can be a woman too. But if someone
definitely.
who's done that, if they were to come to you as a coach, or how would you?
Yes, so I'm just going to do here a little bit of where my thought was going while listening to both of you. Is for someone to have willingness to come to a coach and present this challenge, the person needs already to be a little bit on
Yeah.
the responsibility part. Like,
Mhm.
maybe it's something that I'm doing. Maybe it's
Yeah. Yeah.
in some ways it's something with me. So this is also the part that I think it's important for all our listeners. And if you're here today listening to this, it's already a part of your process for sure. It's not like you're far away from this process and not being available, vulnerable. But probably, and Eric, you've done something with me in the past, and after the second session, I will probably try to go with it. It's the visualization where the person is at, and trying to understand what's going on in their body when some of the situations are pointed out to them. Like, okay, when you receive that message, and the part of closing your eyes, it's very important, because then we don't get distracted with the surroundings, trying, where are you feeling that? And how does that make you feel? I really like to work with people around this concept of where are you feeling it? What does that make you feel? And what words come to your mind when you read that, or when you saw that message, or when you heard someone telling? And then I will try to understand what is the concepts behind those words for the person. And then it depends on each person where would be the path that I would go next with them. Because being a coach, and I know we have different capabilities, all of us as coaches, but some things for me, considering trauma or limiting beliefs, are difficult to work with. I really prefer to address another coach or another professional to address those kinds of things. Make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you would you want to make sure that you have the tools to be able to help the person.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like
And
anything else.
and considering my niche, so empowerment, I would need to understand what is the goal that the person is trying to achieve. And for coming to me as an empowerment coach, I want to give help that person understand their self-confidence, their self-worth, and everything. So sometimes it goes way deviated from this process.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think again, from an empowerment perspective, still to Avril's point, maybe we say on the flip side, right? If we're coaching a woman that's maybe going through a similar issue as you, right, who feels that within dating, they always hit some kind of stumbling block, they hit some kind of barrier at a certain point, right? When, maybe it's like date 4, date 5, and they feel a certain type of connection with somebody, and then all of a sudden they think that things are getting real, and all of a sudden that guy starts ghosting. Now, look, at the end of the day, we can never control somebody else's feelings, but now, how would you coach that woman through it? And I know this is an interesting concept because Sophia's going through something similar, but this is
Yeah.
8-year-old self version, right? Of now that it's
Mhm.
not you and somebody's coming to you, how would you coach them?
Yeah.
You're asking me or Avril?
I'm asking you.
Me. Okay, that's perfect.
That's perfect.
I think what I try to do, and not with clients, but it's very difficult for us as coaches. At least I talk from my side to take the coach at when you're talking to friends,
Mhm.
because you've gained this muscle,
Mhm.
I would say, to ask questions. So I'm
Mhm.
bringing this in, but I'm seeing this happening with a lot of my girlfriends that I'm dating, these kinds of situations. So I always try to understand a little bit more of the situation. Again, what did it make you feel? Where is your thought going when this happens? And on the empowerment side is like, maybe this is something that you needed to learn to go into the next situation, the next dating. What have you learned with this experience? And in what moment did you felt or understood that this was not the situation that you are looking for to? And sometimes even trying to understand what is that women looking for. In fact, why is this situation, what is this situation telling you about what you want to achieve in your life? Maybe this is the question that I think it's also because these are the questions that I put myself when these kinds of situations happen to me.
And as a follow-up, how would you, so now obviously, you know, this is happening to the same woman, 3 or 4 times, right? They get to the same spot, and they're starting to think there's something wrong with me now, right?
Mm.
There's something, there's something that I'm not doing right. Like, so, is it the world or is it me? How would you let them keep that sense of perspective, to realize that maybe it's the rest of the world around them and that they need to be, they need to be expanding their, you know, again, try not to push them in a certain direction. But yeah, how would you maintain their confidence and empowerment when they feel defeated?
First, I would try to create a space for a person to feel what they are feeling. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to want to give up. It's okay to, during this time that you're thinking that it's something wrong with you, like trying to understand a little bit more around compassion for yourself and to help the person work on that process of being compassionate. And after that, like, the world is so big. Is what you were saying, Eric. Go on, meet other people. You will see that there's so many possibilities in so many places where you'll be able to find what you want. Because if this didn't work out, and I think Jay has a sentence on that, or someone, like, it's because something else is waiting for you, whatever it is, here or 10,000 miles away. This is really what I feel and what I believe, even if I came very strongly with what's wrong with men. The process is a little bit different. It's like, maybe I really want to help men, like, be able to communicate with your partners or with the people that you are dating, because you will also feel relieved of something that you said, because it was important to you to say it, and maybe you're just scared, and maybe we just need to all to help each other to be more confident to explain things. And I really said something, I think, something very good. It's like, if you, or you, was it you, Eric? I'm sorry. If you're communicating your truth, you're already being honest with the other person. And that's the most beautiful thing that you can say. Say it with respect, be honest, and then move on.
And you know what? Speaking of communication too, one thing that uh, I've also learned, not that I'm a master at it, but it's how we communicate. Even if I'm speaking my truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for example, again, in these situations between me and Sophia, or as we role play here, if I feel like I don't feel, and here's the thing, it's like owning, if I communicating in I statements and communicating in owning my truth. All right. All right. When you did this, I felt this. All right. You might have said something, you might have done an action. So it's factual. When you said this or when you did this, I felt this. Right. Rather than you making me feel this. Do you get what I'm saying? That kind of like, so within language itself, how we communicate, all right, can also, there's a way, Sophia, that if I'm coming to you and I'm trying to tell you my truth, the way I communicate it can either automatically make you put your defense shields up or can make you be open to hearing, oh, what's going on, Avril? Oh, really? I didn't know I was doing that. Oh, you know what I'm saying? But it's also the way I communicate it first. I can come and talk as if I'm accusing you that you are wrong, right?
And yeah, and April,
Yeah.
something that you're saying popped into my mind. Like when you're dating or in a relationship, and when you come with that kind of approach, like I'm feeling this, I would
Mhm.
also start with like my interpretation of the situation is blah blah blah, or I'm
Mhm.
feeling this in this particular situation, but I'm
Mhm.
open to hear what are your thoughts. I think it's important when establishing communication with someone to say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
what do you
totally.
feel about that? What is going in your mind? Because sometimes we think a lot only in our heads,
Mhm.
and we are making like a movie with everything that's
Exactly.
going on.
Yeah. So you're saying exactly what I'm saying. So the point is like in terms of like what language to use or how to communicate it, I'm sure that there are many ways and coaches and therapists are good at helping people with that. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that how it's communicated,
Mm-hmm.
right? So going back to example
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
gave us is like you don't feel we're aligned. All right. We just started dating. It's been a few weeks and you don't feel we're aligned because of dot, 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 dot. It's like what I was just trying to put across in the way we communicate is that there's a way of communicating that in which we are talking about the subject being something on the table rather than the other person. You get what I'm
Perfect.
saying? I don't
Totally.
feel we're aligned because of the way we
Mm-hmm.
communicate. Not, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we're aligned because the way you
You
communicate.
communicate.
Did you get,
Definitely.
did you get what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
my point is just that how, and because even that, Sophia, let's say you communicate beautifully and say, hey, this is why I feel we're not aligned, dot, dot, dot. It's now up to the person receiving it to either take it personal, do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or, depending on how they're listening and how they're processing it, they can either take it personal or actually get you where you're at. Like, actually, this is not about me, it's about the way we are not aligned. Do you get what I'm saying? Whether it's more challenging for the person to at times not to take it personal when
Mm-hmm.
you come with you statements. You did this, or you are that, or you're this, you're this. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah, blaming
again,
is never the
yeah, in a
solution.
blaming language, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like the point I'm just really trying to highlight is that even the way that's communicated, especially, and it's tricky too, because especially when relationships are still starting, right? We all come from different ways of communications, different ways of, so it's tricky too, the first few weeks, months of dating, like when these things start coming up, how we communicate. But like you said, as long as you do your best to speak your truth in a very respectful way, awesome. And also just be more aware of how you're communicating your truth. Yeah, that's my take on that.
100%, 100%. Fantastic. No, so I think really what we're saying here, yeah, is yeah, the way that you communicate obviously has a big effect, right, on how the other person perceives it, right? So I think we can communicate truthfully, but also, in a respectful way. I think if we can do both, right? Yeah, because to Abel's point, a lot of people think that, just blunt, completely blunt is, there's a way to do that without triggering someone else, right? And that's where it's like this something that I'm working on. I'm sure Sophia's heard of it, nonviolent communication, um,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a very effective way within all relationships to effectively communicate your needs, um, to people at work and also, within relationships. So Fantastic, guys. So just to kind of finish us off, why don't we just have our main takeaway, the one thing that you would like our listeners to leave with after today's episode? I'll go first, as you guys are deep in thought.
Thank you, Eric.
I would say,
Yeah, so kind of you.
Thank you.
thanks.
You can go for it sometimes.
I'm a team player. I'm a team player. I would say, I would just reiterate the speaking your truth, right? I think you can only do that once you know what your truth is. No one's expecting you to have it all figured out and to have, your grand plan in life, thought out, in your mind. But we do need to have a clear picture of what is meaningful to us, what is important to us, and our values, at least, right? What means something to us right now, right? And only then can we speak our truth and really align the people around us with those people, with the people that we want in our lives, right? Who's up? Sofia?
I'll be last.
Oh, you be last?
Yeah.
Okay. My main takeaway, funny enough, is actually the last thing that I spoke about. It's something that I myself had forgotten. That sometimes it's not what you say, but how it's said. How I communicate certain things, especially if we have conflict or we have disagreement. It's the way I communicate can either, again, get someone's guards up or have them open, right? But I still am also aware that even though I may communicate that way, it doesn't necessarily mean that I may get a good response, because it's still open to how that person interprets what I've just said, or how they take what I've done. But my part is to try and communicate in a way that I'm targeting the subject or the issue at hand and not the person, and that I'm aware that the way I'm communicating is coming across that way.
How it lands. Even
Exactly.
when you try your best to do like very perfectly and very kind and very
Yeah.
respectfully. I will tell you the takeaway that I'm taking for myself. And I think that this is important for all the ladies out there. Every man is always going through something. As women, we are always going through something that the other person knows nothing about. So don't take it personally. Live with respect for yourself and for the other person. But if the situation doesn't work for you, just appreciate and be grateful that it's shown up in that way. And never take it like it's that you are not lovable or that it's something wrong with you.
Love that. Mic drop. All right, coaches, thank you so much for another episode of Life's a Coach. Listeners, please do let us know what you want us to talk about within relationships and dating. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, Avril, Sofia, see you later.
See you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Life's a Coach, where our conversations aim to empower and support your personal growth. Until next time, remember that personal development is ongoing, so keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living a life that aligns with your true purpose. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Life's a Coach.